Well, Dad, I typically like to think of myself as someone who has a pretty good sense of direction.
You have a much better sense of direction than I do.
That's correct. I do. And I feel like I can go one place and once I get there, I can get back there pretty easily. But there was one time where my sense of direction failed me completely. This
I
was at
I
the
remember
national
that
national championship
Miami
game.
Shores, Florida.
It was in Miami, um, a Hard Rock Stadium, I think that's what it's called, where the Dolphins play. We were there watching Alabama absolutely destroy Notre Dame in the national championship.
It wasn't close.
That was a fun experience for Bama fans. It was a fun experience for Notre Dame fans for like 5 minutes. Um,
I wish the same guys that had spoken to us at the beginning had come back and just reacquainted with us at the end.
That would have been great. They said some not so uplifting things to us, and we just smiled and waved, knowing what was about to happen. And they went and back to their imaginary girlfriends. Anyway, hating on the Notre Dame fans there for a second. We love you guys. But after the game, we stayed to the very end. We were watching college
Sports
football.
Center, Herb Street and
Kirk
the gang
Herbstreit.
on Sports Center.
Yeah,
And it's
college game
basically
day.
them, 4 or 5 of them, and us.
It's right. We were in the background. We stayed at the very end, and we get out of the stadium, and I say, "Hey, Dad, our car's right over there." And we're at one corner of the stadium. What I didn't realize is that the car was right behind us. We end up walking around the entire stadium at, I don't know, like 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever that was, and there's nobody left. All I needed was a sign. Point me in the right direction.
There's a part of this story that you are conveniently eliminating,
I don't remember.
and it's probably because you don't want to confess it. But right at the beginning, when we started walking in this direction, I said, "This does not look right, Jess."
Oh, no, that wasn't intentional. You're right. I did. You said it. I just didn't remember the full details of the story. But I do remember you saying that. You were right at that one.
And I thought to myself, the worst that can happen is that we can spend an hour encircling a stadium and come back to our car, which was probably 75 yards behind where we were when we went in the opposite direction.
Right. You know, I'm sure there's a whole father teaching moment, even your adult son, in that moment. But the point is not this. The point is that every so often you go somewhere for the first time, and you don't know where you're supposed to go.
Churches are notorious for this.
Churches, literally took the words out of my mouth, are notorious for this. Whenever first-time guests arrive, they don't know where they're supposed to go, yet and there's no one to tell them where to go. There's no signs to point them where to go. So we are talking about unforced errors. This is part of our Unforced Errors series podcast. And so today we're going to be looking at the lack of signage, the lack of indicators, markers, where to go. But before we jump into it, we do want to thank one of our sponsors for this podcast, Cheney and Associates. You want to talk about needing a sign? If you are having some bookkeeping and financial needs, here's your sign. Go check out CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. They are the accounting firm for the church. They help out thousands of churches all over with their bookkeeping needs. In fact, they're more than just about, even just providing services. They're actually providing information now. They have started the Church Advisory Podcast, which is great. If you have an administrator or even a lead pastor or an executive pastor in your church, have them go check out the Church Advisory Podcast. They're going to give lots of information about bookkeeping, finance, administrative needs, anything that's advisory in that role. Cheney Associates can help you with that. So go check out CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Go check out the Church Advisory Podcast. They're doing some great work.
I did my first listen to it a few weeks ago. I don't know how many nuggets of information I came away with, but it was a lot.
Sure.
It was a lot of information. I mean, Steve Cheney, nobody knows church finance more than Steve Cheney. His associate who was with him, whose name I'm sorry, I do not remember, I should have, but the two of them did a tremendous job, and they continue to on the Church Advisory Podcast.
Yeah, so go check them out. We're super thankful for them, their partnership with Church Answers. Well, today we're talking about unforced errors, things that we hope to help you avoid at your church. And we're talking specifically about signage, about simply pointing the way to where someone is supposed to go. We're going to look at a couple different things regarding church signage. And here's the first thing. Regular attendees, the people who come to church on an ongoing basis, no longer need signs, but first-time guests need signs. Why is that so important, Dad? I mean, there's the obvious. They need to know where to go. But is there anything else? Is there more to it than that? Or is it that simple?
It's a lot more to it. It is that simple, and there's a lot more to it. How about an equivocal answer like that? First of all, it is just obvious. Of course, somebody does not know where they are. They're not going to know where to go. That's obvious. However, what we do not recognize is that what happens in these, and I'm not going to give how many minutes or seconds because I've seen nothing that proves what the decision time is, but within a short time of someone arriving on campus, they have made up their mind about this church.
Right.
Before they walk in the front door, before they hear the incredible Jess Rayner preach God's word with eloquence, power, and demonstrative edification.
Nope.
Yeah, they have made a decision of sorts. And as you know, our listeners and viewers know that I have volunteered to be out in the parking lot, and I get to see more of this again and again. Boy, did I see it last Sunday, especially coming for the second service.
Right.
I think graduates or something like that.
We had our high school senior recognition. So yeah, we had an imbalance in our services for sure.
Well, I can tell you this. There were a lot of people with deer in the headlight looks. You know, where do I go? What do I do? One of them, by her age, would have indicated she was a grandmother. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but by her age, and I could tell she's in the car and she's looking to the left, she's looking to the right, and there is a sign that says "Enter here."
Yeah, for anyone of our listeners, we are in a shared complex. We're in a business complex, so we don't have the ability to add any permanent signage. So we have to add temporary signage throughout the weekend. And so we do have some limitations, but I feel like we have plenty of signs out there that are pointing the way. But even then, what you're talking about is the guest experience, even with signs.
And she did not know where to enter. She did not know where to park. And so I stopped her, smiled, the best smile that Thom Rainer can have to offer, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, is probably a 2.5.
Generously.
And I said, "Hey, will you do me a favor?" And she looked at me like, "Oh my gosh, am I preaching today?" No. She said, "Yes." I said, "There is a parking spot that for some reason nobody ever wants to fill. It's the closest one near the entrance door. Would you do me a favor and go in and take that parking spot just simply so that it can be taken and people know it's okay to park in this area?" And you could see the tension begin to melt off of her demeanor.
Right.
Not only did she know where to park, which she was having trouble doing, even though the signage was there, but she now knew where the entrance was. Right. That's one example. Now, that's an example with a church that has good signage.
Yeah, and I think the point, again, we're making is that they need signs. So even with decent signage, there's still this nervousness that takes place with a first-time guest. They want to feel like they are expected. And so having zero signage is not good at the bare minimum. I feel like this is probably some of the lowest hanging fruit out there for church leaders.
It is low hanging fruit, and it is something that can be remedied in the course of a week, especially if you have a sign company that can just produce something locally. It can be done quickly. So yeah this is an easy answer to a not so difficult question.
Yeah, I'll throw a company out there we use this. They're not partners with us. We just use them. They're called Radiant Printing. They do church signage, and so you can get stuff pretty quickly, pretty easily, even temporary. So if you have to go through the process of doing permanent signage, just get some A-frames, some sandwich boards, sidewalk signs out there. Something really simple. So then here's a question: is it worse to have no signage or poor signage? Is it worse to have no signage or poor signage?
No signage.
Okay.
No signage, because you know what poor signage is going to do. It's going to embed in their mind the wrong direction, the wrong way to go, and that is a double negative. It's one thing not to have any, that's a single negative, but to have something wrong is a double negative. So
you're saying no signage or poor signage is worse? Which one's worse?
The worst one is Poor signage.
Poor signage.
Poor. What did I say?
I don't know. I thought you said no signage. I don't remember what you said.
Okay, it's poor signage. It's
Poor
poor.
signage.
I would rather have no signage than poor signage.
Okay.
I'd not rather have. I wouldn't want to have either one, obviously. But if I got to choose between the two, no signage.
Okay. Because I think this is our second point. Now I think this is our second point. Poor signage can leave visitors feeling confused about where to park and or drop off children. I think it is way worse if you're a church and you're thinking about your signage and you have old signage up that points in people in the direction they don't need to go. It is way worse for them to think they're going in the right direction only to show up in the wrong spot.
Exactly.
So it gives them wrong signage gives them the confidence that ends up causing them to have even more disappointment versus no signage. At least they're kind of going, I don't know where to go. And so they don't have that little bit of like, oh, there's the worship space. When then all of a sudden you walk into the middle of a nursery room. Hopefully there's no signage that's that extreme out there. But the question is, think about first-time guests.
And Jess, when I do consultations, I'm shortly after this one, I'm going to be getting on a consultation inquiry from a church in Colorado, and I have a feeling what some of the things we're going to talk about. Well, there will be someone at a church where we're consulting, not necessarily this one, but usually a church where we're talking, they say, it's common sense. Why do you make such a big deal about this?
About where to go.
About where to go. And I'm saying, guys, first of all, it's not common sense. It's common sense to you because you've been in a repeated behavior pattern. And then second of all, it is a first-time experience for many of them, and they don't know what is going on. And if you want your guest to walk into the worship center with a sense of uneasiness and frustration and general negative perspective about your church, make signage poor.
Right.
And watch what will happen. It's that important.
Right. Yeah. I think if there's one thing that you can do, it's maybe let's do a quick, at this point, if you're listening to this podcast, do a quick inventory of your church. Just walk around, take pictures, like figure out, go back and put yourself in the mindset of a first time guest, drive off your parking lot and drive back on your parking lot and just put that mindset on of what's happening to a first time guest. What are they seeing? How far can you go? I mean, I think it's, Disney, I love, they have their the way they do things. I have to go back and look at it. Like they calculated the distance someone would walk to put their trash in a trash can.
Oh yeah. Well, we're not doing that.
What? No, I'm saying this. I'm saying there's a point though. There's a psychology of like how far someone will go before they need to know where the next piece is. So it's like they'll walk 25 feet to put the trash in a trash can. Same with signage. There's some kind of, I don't know what it is, but there's some kind of like psychological piece to where if you're standing in one spot, you can see where the next sign is. That's your next marker. So if you're in your church and you're walking around and you come to a place and you're in a spot where you can't see any other signage about where to go, you got to think about what that's going to make for a first time guest feel.
Well, couple of comments here, Jess. First of all, we saw that in our church with good signage. I mean, we saw some gaps. I'm not going to get into the gaps, but we saw some of the gaps, and I saw those gaps exploited. I saw those gaps become real right before me. So that's just one of the realities that hey, it's going to happen. Now, I'm reporting to you for the first time because you don't know this.
Okay,
I do the service. Most of the time, it's the second service. First service is less attended. I'm not as worried about it, even though I look around. Second service, I'm out in the parking lot. And about 15 minutes into the second service, I leave. Your mother stays because she thinks you're the greatest preacher in the creation of the world, and she's going to listen to you twice. I don't want to listen to you twice. I got a lot out of the first one, but not the second one. But what I do is I'll typically go to the convenience store. You know where it is, near McDonald's. I'll fill up with gas. I may get me a diet drink, and I'll turn around and come back, and I have a purpose behind it. I want to approach the parking lot that time of day to see what I'm seeing from the perspective of an automobile. And I'm learning a lot still to this point. And I know that's probably TMI for most people, but it's fascinating to me just to see what's going on. And one of the things that I have discovered is visibility of our signs even the larger signs has a spatial reality where you're not going to see it until you're at a certain marker on Port Royal Road.
Okay.
And we not that we have to make a change, but we need to be aware of it. They're not seeing that because my vision is poor, but my vision with contact corrected vision is good. And I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, what am I really seeing when I don't know, 1,500 feet away?
Okay. Okay.
Knowing that I'm going to the church.
Yeah. So this goes back to the idea of potentially poor signage, is that because we are on a busy road that is heavy traffic, some of our signage may not be visible until you get close enough.
Exactly.
And so this, again, I mean, that's the point. And that's great. Yeah. Here, I got a free consultation here in this podcast. You know, this is pretty amazing. Is that you gotta think through this, and maybe even have someone in your church do that exercise that my dad just mentioned. Have someone drive to the church 15 minutes after the service starts and just see what it's like driving into your parking lot, walking into your building, have them take notes. It's easy to do if you're a church leader. You tell someone to come to church 15 minutes late, you'll probably have a lot of people sign up for that.
You want to hear one correction I made? On my own?
Sure.
On my own, I told our inside greeters, front door, don't lock the door and leave.
Oh, I didn't know that was happening.
Occasionally.
Okay.
Occasionally. I said, guys, y'all need to be, I don't mind the door being locked. That's a good security measure. We've got a cop, understand that. But I've seen a couple of times where someone came that late and they could not get in. So what did I do? I came to the door and started banging on the door. Not a very good impression, but I wanted them to be able to get in. That doesn't happen with regularity. Okay. But that's just another hint of things that could take place.
Yeah, we do have a time when we end up locking our doors.
It's a good move.
Yeah. There's but there should be someone always on the inside waiting for someone to come. We do have a police officer that waits in our lobby as well. So that's good to know. There's always little breakdowns that can happen. So do that inventory. It's a great way. You got to be thinking about a first time guest, because here's the reality: you're going to spend time, or at least you should be, reaching your community, and all that work that you put in the community. You want to make sure you have a welcoming church. Bingo. So you may think, well, Jess, I maybe I can reach my community more. What's a good resource for that? Well, let me tell you about one of our other sponsors. Their name is Upward Sports.
The best.
They are, go to upwardsports.org. I'm sorry, go to upward.org/church answers. And they are riding this pickleball wave right now that is hitting America.
Pickleball is pickleball.
And here's what they're doing. If you're listening to this, and this is why we love you listening to our podcast, what Upward is doing right now, they're offering, if you sign up and join in with doing some outreach, you're thinking about guests, you want more guests, and so you're thinking about doing outreach, they are going to give 2 free pickleball net sets. That's net sets. Pickleball net sets.
Pickleball net sets.
When you create a league within your church, and they have 200 sets available, and so it is first come first serve. So they want you to go to upward.org/pickleball, go to upward.org/church answers, and sign up and start a pickleball league in your community. It's a great way to reach people.
It'll explode.
And my guess is Upward's going to make sure there's great signage. You're going to learn about how to have great signage,
marketing, everything.
And then you're going to invite them. They're going to come to your church, and then they're going to walk in because they're going to say, hey, I listen to this podcast, and you have great signage, and I feel very welcomed here. See, it all comes together.
Come together. That's the Beatles. Right
there. That is. So go check out upward.org/church answers and see what they can do to help you start a pickleball league in your community. Because we do. When you spend the time investing, reaching your community, you want to make sure when they come to the church, your church, that they know where to go. So far we've looked at first-time guests need signs. Poor signage can leave visitors feeling confused. Let's start looking at some of these solutions now. Clear, visible markers, such as arrows, banners, welcome tents, improve guest flow, and reduce anxiety. All right, so Dad, you go back. You can use my church as an example. You brought it up. You told me the problem. What would be the solution? So the problem is for our church, if you're coming, we're on a busy road, a main road, which is great, decent visibility from the road. We're working on that. But if you come at a certain time, we're confined. There are some limitations based off the city and what we can do in our complex. So we're not able to put our own signage up. So we do have temporary signage. But you're saying some of our temporary signage is too small.
Mm-hmm. And you may not overcome that. So
We are limited by what we can put out. But
exactly. That may not be the answer. I would give you the same suggestion I would give your brother, since I was at his church last week.
okay.
And you know me, I don't want to put on a consulting hat when I'm going to worship, especially at one of my son's churches.
Sure.
I always put on a consulting hat when I go worship. And I could see clearly from all the churches I consulted, if they put out a welcome tent,
Okay.
a canopy,
Okay.
it's clearly visible from 43rd Avenue, which is where they are.
Mm-hmm.
People don't have to see that it says guest on it. They know intuitively I'm supposed to go to the tent.
Yep.
And when they drive and they get in the proximity, let's say, of Church at Spring Hill, and they see that tent, they're going to know I now have a magnet that is pulling me in. And I'm trying to make that suggestion more and more to church leaders. I think a lot of people will think, okay, Tom, that's just another quick fix type of thing. Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
It works quickly. So I would say Church at Spring Hill, one of the solutions is have a welcome tent, even if it doesn't have tent on it.
That doesn't have what?
Even if it doesn't have welcome tent on it.
Just even buy a generic one.
Just buy a generic one. And you would have to get someone to man it and stay there. You cannot have it empty. I was at a mega church in Florida several months ago. A lot of good things going on in the church. They had one tent in the parking lot. I knew that's where I was to go, but there was no one there. I got there a little early, and I told the pastor, and they said, well, we tell them not to show up to this time. I said, okay, you need to show up about 10 minutes earlier.
Okay.
I said, okay.
All right. So what should be, if you're listening to what, and we'll finish this up quickly here, but what should be in the tent?
A person or two, number one.
Just someone there just to say hello.
Also, some type of some type of paper to hand them.
Okay. Some
Not
information
just
on the church.
Not just a QR code for them to go and go digital. We could talk forever. I'm doing research on what I call the analog church. There's so much going on there. I'm not going to go down that path right now, but something to put in their hands. Perhaps a gift if they're a first-time guest, but I wouldn't go any further than that. A person, a piece of paper, maybe that has rooms or maps or something like that, a little bit about the church, and then perhaps something where they can get more information through gifts. Those are the three things. Okay.
That's good to know. So what about this? Signage should prioritize simplicity, visibility, and accessibility over creativity or clever language. You're saying it just needs to be worship this way, bathrooms this way, kids ministry this way.
I can tell when a worship leader has designed the signs.
That's funny and maybe partially true, but maybe not 100%.
I can tell when worship leaders have designed the signage.
I love creatives because I'm not one. I love creatives.
You don't want creatives with your signage, especially your outside signage. You don't want your inside signage to have little bitty toilets for the little bitty people. Just say kids' restroom instead of.
I was so confused what you were saying there.
I'm just saying that I've seen the little toilet for the little kids to go to the restroom instead of children's restroom.
Oh, like a sign had a big toilet and a little toilet.
Children's restroom boys, children's restroom girls. And it was tiny toilet. I called it the tiny TT toilet. It was just really small.
So be clear, kids' bathroom, kids. So that, again, if you're thinking about how do you do signage, and don't use insider language. We end up changing our kids' ministry signage because we had some kind of creative names for it, hill climbers, hill jumpers. And it was kind of like, which room am I in? And we finally just called it. It says nursery with the ages, preschool ages to pre-K.
Perfect.
So we end up just calling it what it is, which is typical for our church anyway. So make sure your signage is visible, it's accessible. Make sure there's no insider language on it, that someone who doesn't know church at all, that they know where to go.
And this creativity brings up this last point, Jess.
Yeah. Guest-friendly churches see signage not as decor, but as essential hospitality.
You don't want it to be ugly. You don't want it to be a mismatch, but you want it to be clear. Mm-hmm. That's it. Clear, functional.
Yeah. And there are places you can do signage that is non-guest focused. For example, we have a sign in our worship space. As soon as you walk in, it says, "This is family." It's a big old banner that we hung up.
Yeah, I love that thing there, but it's there after you get in the worship space. You've already gone through 2 layers, which is great.
Right. That's not for our guests. that is more for our church at large. It's a bit of our culture and who we are. So there is a place to do some of those pieces that you want to do if you're a church leader. Just make sure it's not in place of what first-time guests could potentially see. I think this is some of the lowest hanging fruit out there.
And some of the least taken off the tree.
First-time guest parking. It still amazes me how many times churches don't have any first-time guest parking. All the signage can just be so easily done. It is possible to have a sign in a week. It may not be the best. It may not be exactly what you want.
It's better than what you don't have.
Right. And so it is very possible through different, vendors out there to get something in a week. It sounds like I'm going to be getting a tent. You'll have to find out. You have to stay with us as we continue to go through these podcasts in the next week or two.
And I know you're going to close it. I know you're going to close it with Cheney, but I will say this. When I make a recommendation to either one of you two boys on the podcast, I try to be very careful because I don't want to tell y'all what to do. Y'all do a lot of things better than I do. And second of all, it doesn't really matter because it's less than 50% of the time you do anything anyway.
That you say?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you think it's that high?
Oh, yeah. I just going to say it. I said, Sam, I don't know where the entrance is to your church.
Well, have Mom say it, and then we'll listen.
There you go.
Speaking of listening, we hope you will listen to Cheney Associates. They have a brand new podcast out there called the Church Advisory Podcast. Cheney Associates are one of our sponsors for this podcast. They are the accounting firm for the church. They help thousands of churches every single week gain ministry insights. They provide valuable information for you as a church leader to make ministry decisions. They want you to lead your church, so let them handle the numbers. Go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Go take a look and listen to their church advisory podcast as well. They're doing some tremendous work, and so we're super thankful for them. We're thankful for their partnership. We're thankful that they're going to help your church. All you got to do is go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers and see what they can do. Well, this is a fun Unforced Error series. I've really enjoyed it. We have one more to go, though, where we're going to be looking at one more unforced error, and we're going to be talking about restrooms.
It's one of my favorite topics. I
cannot wait. We'll see what happens. We had some potty talk on this one. Sounds like we're going to have some potty talk on the next one. We'll catch you then.